right, so this is kind of part 2 of another edition of Fire, Flower, and Fur. If you saw our first one, we did turkey prep. We prepped it to get it into the brine. This time we're going to prep it to show how I throw it, excuse me, what I do before I put it on the smoker. This can also be done if you do it in the oven. I'll show you a couple of things that we do that are, well, just the stuff we do. I mean, it's not necessarily what you need to do, but before we put it on the smoker, you have to excuse my attire. This is my smoking attire. Sorry, I just feel like I look like I just crawled out of a dumpster, but it's 6 in the morning. We got the pit fired a little while ago, and it's plenty cold out there according to the temperature. It's 16 degrees, which is actually warmer than I anticipated it would be. Term wheel digger's ass still comes into play on this, though, because it is cold with all the snow and everything. So we'll get rolling on this. Like I said, if you didn't see the first part of this, we took the turkey and prepped it, got it all cleaned up, got all the loose skin and stuff off it. Showed you some different things you can do. And this time we put it in the big bowl, the big bucket here with the brine in it. So it's been soaking since about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to go ahead and pour all the brine out. Important note on this is you never want to reuse the brine, especially with poultry. Once it's been used, it's used. Don't hang on to it. Just go ahead and dump it out and call it good. All right. So I'll have to go over and pull that pan out of the way. Now, once it's been brined, you want to wash it off really good. Make sure you use cold water. This gets kind of the excess gut that's on there. I shouldn't say gut, but the spices and stuff that are in it kind of gets rid of all them. Make sure you wash the cabbage out really good. I'll show you when I get back over there. Wash top bottom. Make sure you get in between all the creases in the wings and in the drumsticks and the thigh area. Wash that off really good. Drain it out really good. Then we'll bring it over to the pan. Just whatever you use for this. Okay. So I don't know if you can see this, but if you look, the brine's done. Of course, some of these spices are kind of hung up in the little stringy fat areas that are in there. Just turn the meat a little bit darker, and that's what you want. The fat's held on pretty good. See how everything's kind of loose. Let's take a paper towel, dab everything off really good. Make sure we get all this crap out of the cavity area, nice and dry as best we can. I mean, you won't get it completely dry, but you can get it as dry as you can on that. Get everything nice and dried out if you can. See, that's a good looking bird. That turned out really good. Make sure you get the bottom. Well, that feels like changing a diaper. Hold both legs up, dropping it around. We're missing the baby wipes and getting peed on in the face. So, all right. So there is it's not a bad looking bird. See how it's kind of turned, like I said, kind of turned the meat dark. The skin's still intact. Turned out really good. All right. So you can see there's a cheesecloth here, and I'll show you what we're going to do with it here in a minute. One of the first things I like to do is, because I'm smoking it, you don't need to do this. I like to get a hold of this and tuck the wings in under the body. And what this does is, because of the heat that we'll be dealing with, what you'll sometimes end up with is the ends of the wings will get burned. They'll get kind of brown and crispy, and it's more of an aesthetic thing. It's just kind of make things look pretty. Tuck those in real good. Okay, so we've softened a bunch of butter. And
this is what you look like when you get up at 6 a.m. to go out and fire. It is not pretty, but
you look fine.
Whatever.
I say fire a pit to get things going. Because I use a stick burner,
so it's soft enough?
Yeah, I think so. Because I use a stick burner, it's kind of a messy thing getting it going, and especially when it's cold like this, we kind of get in a hurry, so things have a tendency to get a little bit puffy. All right, well, the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to grab just a chunk of this, about a quarter to a half a stick, and just toss it in the cavity. I'm going to soften this a little bit more. I just like to put that in the cavity just so it's, you know, kind of in there, just to kind of help things out. Now, what you can do to add flavor, I don't do it. I don't necessarily do it. I no particular reason other than I just don't do it. As I don't. Some people will shove like vegetables and stuff in there. And like I said in our last video, if you didn't see it, if I'm smoking a turkey, I personally don't ever stuff it because the bread has a tendency to soak up too much smoke and it doesn't taste good at all. So we'll stuff it. We won't stuff this turkey at all. I'll make it separately. But if you do this in an oven, of course, you can stuff it. You can do this so you can put it in a basting bag, throw it in the oven. If you deep fry it, you know, and do whatever you want with it. But say that the whole purpose of the brine on this was to add another level of flavor and also to help with the moisture. Keeps things it keeps the moisture in the meat in pretty good. All right, so one of the first things you do, so hopefully this turkey's cold, you'll take this butter and it needs to be softened more. Okay, so that being good and soft, what I like to do is, first things first. Take a gob of this. I don't know if you saw in the last video, but we actually peeled the skin up on this. You can, if you want, add a little bit of your favorite rub or something to this butter when you put it on the skin. I don't do that because I put the rub on the outside. I'll show you that here in a minute. To get butter up under the skin, you know, get a fair amount of butter up under the skin. Like that. Get those pieces up in there, kind of mash them down. And then because I did it on the front side also, did this on the front side, we'll peel that skin up a little bit. Tuck a big old gob of butter up in there, inside that. Gets it next to the meat, helps, you know, keep it, add some flavor with the butter in there as best we can. This turkey's plenty cold, so the butter is actually hardening as I'm putting it in, which, you know, happens. So you just kind of tuck that up in there, as much as that up under the skin as you can. And then what that'll do, you kind of push that around with your hands. Then, see what's happening is the turkey's so cold, the butter's hardening back up. See? It's all right though. So, I'm going to soften it more. So this butter looks like it's little lumps under the skin, which is fine because when it melts, it'll kind of soak into the meat a little bit. Get under the skin there a little bit. Which is kind of what we want because as it cooks, we want that to kind of slowly melt, you know, not come out all at once. Alright, so now we'll just slather this all over the bird. No, doesn't need to be pretty. We're just trying to get a layer of butter. Oh, I do need to mention I am using unsalted butter. Between the brine and this is an enhanced turkey, so if you read it, it's basically kind of a flavored saline solution. I mean, that isn't exactly what it is, but it's kind of what it is. So we get the butter, just a nice, good, thick layer everywhere. We want to get a little bit, you know, these pieces of the meat. I mean, it doesn't need to be pretty. It's because this is all going to just melt and hopefully help baste the turkey and help with the basting juices. Do that as best we can. So we want to get as much of this on the carcass as we can. The thing about this is when it gets cold, the butter starts to harden and it won't spread anymore. But that's fine. Get it as much of the skin as you can. Once we've got that, we want to get a little bit on the bottom. Just kind of help as best we can. And just a thin layer of this on the bottom. You don't need to get a whole bunch because it'll all come off anyway. But I should say it'll come off, but it's not going to really do much. All right, so we've got that. Now, to the cheesecloth. Oh, before we do that, can you grab the canister out of there, or is it too high? What I like to do is we make our own rubs and sauce, and we have what is our original rub. We just call our original rub.
And of course I got the beef up.
So we call our original rub. It's just where it all started for us. We just want to put just a real light sprinkle of that, just kind of everywhere. So Has a really good flavor. This is just a good all around, just brown sugar based, with some spices and stuff in it. And throw a little bit up in the cavity.
Like Emerald Lagasse.
Bam.
Bam. Imagine it's early. We're a little weird when it's early.
Yeah. Here, a little bit more in here. Just another little toss inside the hole there. There we go. Okay, now for the cheesecloth. Need to turn this pan around a little bit. One thing about this is messy, so be aware of that. All right, so as you can see, we've got just a good layer, just a good, gob of butter everywhere.
This is just good old cheesecloth.
Yeah, it's a single layer cheesecloth, and so what we want to do is put that bird right on that, and then we're going to pull.
First?
Well, just however it works out.
Sides up.
Yeah, pull this. You want to try to keep, a single layer, especially on the
Like
breast
this?
side. On the breast side. And then, if you can turn that a little bit, there you go.
You're trying to keep this together
Yeah,
as
so
best you can, right?
we took that little piece out of this, where that held the legs together. Just use that to kind of tie the legs up. This was just kind of an odd piece we found in the cupboard. And we're kind of in a hurry because we got to get this. We're on a timing thing here. You
Okay,
see what
so I cross. I still need to cut that a little bit more. This was just trial and error, and this seems to work. So this is all up underneath the legs. I cross it, bring it around. I usually do one up through the leg. Just so, however it is, this isn't like magic formula. Just however you can get this up and tight. I'm getting a good grab on it today.
It's early and we're in a big hurry, so I shouldn't say we're in a big hurry. We need to hurry because
We've
we're
got
on a
family
timing.
coming.
We've got a timing thing we got going.
Okay, so just like I said, the whole idea is that you're trying to get the legs to tighten back together again. So I crisscrossed, I came up from underneath, I crisscrossed, and however it is that you can do that, tighten that up, tie it, and then I'm going to cut the rest of these pieces off. Just
That's
because
good.
they'll smoke up in the smoker, and you don't really need that.
Dry out, and where we're using a stick burner, we're using heat. I don't know if it would happen. It might catch fire, but I doubt it because it's going to be far enough away from the
No,
fire.
but it would be. Every year it's a little different.
Yeah, the turkey's a little bit different sizes and just the shape of the carcass and stuff. It's just a little bit. I shouldn't use the word carcass. It sounds kind of weird on something you're going to be eating. Anyway, so as you can see, now that's just been tied up. So we've got the rub on it, we've got the butter on it. Now what we want to do is take even more butter, and we just want to just lather the entire outside of this cheesecloth. The cheesecloth, what it does is it helps hold, some of the stuff in, helps hold everything kind of close to the skin. When everything's said and done, you should be able to just cut this and it'll just peel right off and it'll be just fine as long as you keep it moist. That's the whole idea with this, not moist. You want to keep the cheesecloth wet. And by wet, I mean just check it every once in a while. This is a good way to tell when the breast or something or the areas are starting to dry out, because if it looks like the cheesecloth is drying out, then the stuff underneath might be drying out. So if you take, I actually use the Parquet Blue bottle to baste with, and so what I'll do is when it starts to look dry, I'll just open the cooker up, put a little bit of the Parquet on there, let that soak into that, and that cheesecloth helps everything kind of stay tight rather than just run off the bird. Keeps it on the areas you need. But first off, the first thing we'll do is we'll use butter, and we need to just kind of start. We just want to get all of the cheesecloth. We want to get butter on all of the cloth. Basically just wet the whole thing down with butter. Even these areas that are not touching skin, we still want to get them wet. I need to get some on the bottom. Picked up without ruining that. Get it? So just gonna have a little bit of this. Just make sure we soak down the cloth that's on the bottom here. Get everything good and soaked. Like I say, this is messy, but it's always well worth it. It has been in the past. I guess we'll see what happens today because we're kind of, like I say, we're kind of on a time limit. And I'm also doing ribs today, so I've got to get them going here pretty quick also. So, okay, so that's all good and soaked on the bottom, top, bottom, all four sides. Make sure you get everything good and wet, soaked in.
Sis, are you tired?
These areas here that, like I say, that the cloth isn't actually touching anything, but you still want to get everything just good and covered in butter. I get it.
Maybe a little bit more, but this whole side does too.
Once again, this is unsalted butter because the brine I have has butter in it. The enhanced turkey is going to have, salt. The butter or the brine had salt in it. The turkey itself had salt in it with the enhancement that they use. And I'm not a big fan of salt. I mean, I use it. Sometimes you go places and they just...
Salt is an enhancer.
It's a flavor enhancer. Yeah, it's a flavor enhancer. It's not a flavoring and it's not a seasoning. What does that look on that side over there?
Looks good. You might need a little tiny bit right here by the drumstick.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay, so I had a little camera trouble this morning, so we'll just do this way. All right, so what you can see here is the nice thing about this is because the bird has been kept cold. When we put the butter on, it actually kind of hardened up again, so you ended up with kind of a, I wouldn't say a shell, but it put a layer of butter on it, so it's not sliding off and it's not doing anything. So that's covered the entire cheesecloth. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to get a pan. Get these off. Get a pan, which we should have got now. Alright, so what I have here is I basically have just a cake pan. Now, on the pans that I use, I like to use the ones with the smaller sides because we are smoking it. You want to get smoke everywhere you can. So the whole idea of the pan is mostly just to catch the juices. I don't necessarily, sometimes I will put it directly on the grate, but with all the butter and everything on there, you get a lot of juice off it. And if you put it in the pan, then it'll keep some of those juices intact. Let's see if this is going to work. So you get it in the pan. We want to tuck it in as best we can. And like I say, this is just a disposable cake pan, and it works fine. So the only purpose of the pan basically is just kind of keep it intact. So you can see it's in there fairly tight, which is fine. And we want the low sides because we want the smoke to get everywhere we can. So by doing this, we've got, it's open to the cavity here, it's open to the breast side here. And, these plant pans are so flimsy. If you want to use something, you can use a cookie sheet or something like that. It'll be fine. But my personal preference, this is what I do. So, we're ready to roll there. I think we're good with that. We'll walk her outside now and actually put them on the cooker. So we're holding a pretty good temp out there right now. So you want to support the bottom anytime you do this. These things are so big and heavy and awkward.
So you don't lose the whole turkey.
Huh?
So you don't lose the whole turkey?
Yeah, you don't want to dump the whole turkey. Come on out. Okay, it's a winter wonderland out here. So what we got here is... look at all the concept we got off that. Alright, so this is what they call a Jambo Junior, or a Jambo backyard, or a Jambo competition model. It's the smaller version of the Jambos. And I'm just going to put it right in the very back here, kind of in a back corner. I don't want it touching the sides of the cooker at all. The exhaust is right there for vent, so we don't want to cover that, and that's about where we want it. So yeah, we'll let her go and see what happens. So in a little while I'll come out and check it, and if it looks like the cheesecloth is starting to dry out a little bit, then I'll just go ahead and baste it. And that's the purpose of the pan, is just to catch all that. I'm pretty sure that pan is probably going to spill over a little bit anyway, and that's fine. So anyway, that's where we're at. So hopefully we'll get some footage of when we pull it out and you can see what it looks like. And anyway, like I say, this is part two of a turkey prep. I feel kind of bad we didn't really get a chance to go through this like we should have, just because we're kind of in a hurry and it's cold. And we'll get things rolling here. But anyway, thanks again for joining us for this part of Fire, Flower, and Fur. And we will catch you on the flip side.
Let's go warm up, huh? Oh, thank you, buddy. The turkey looks grungy, as does my husband. But that's part of smoking. So this turkey coming out of the smoker with the cheesecloth on looks really sad. So I wanted everybody to see what it looks like as it is unveiled. Because it turns out to be quite a pretty turkey. Be careful, sweetie, because Sis is helping. Okay.
So a couple of things. You can see how much juice came out of it. And we did baste it. And of course it was all the butter that we put on originally. So you can see all that juice in there. And of course the cheesecloth looks, like she says, looks pretty mangled. But as long as you keep it wet, you see how it's just coming right up like that? As long as you keep it wet, you really don't have an issue with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually pull this off right now, because I need to tent it because it's still hot. I need to tent it to keep it, kind of where it's at. I want you to notice as soon as this comes off how dark the skin is. Now it's not burnt. If you remember in the original part of this, I talked about how the skin would get darker, and that's probably a little crispier than we want right there, but it's fine.
When you tent it, it'll soften back up.
Soften it back up. So,
and I did a really good
job. A real good job of wrapping this one up. It's getting that nice, relatively sharp. Jesus, how many knots did you put in that?
Oh. When you ask me to do a job, I do a job.
Well, so you can see, even though we peeled the skin up, see the skin's still on it. So by getting the butter and stuff under it, it was allowed for more smoke to come into it. And of course, there are some spots where the cheesecloth will stick to it.
But for the most part,
it came right off. So we'll be able to pull that right out of that pan. Hopefully, oops, I just stuck it. Ooh, it's definitely tender as you can feel that. So, like I say, that's the one thing you have to remember is when you're smoking a turkey, the skin is going to get a little darker. It definitely feels good. Now, I also want you to notice the timer did not come up. I did check it with a thermopen, and right now, the part of the breast right next to the timer, right there, about halfway in, is sitting at about 168 when I pulled it off. So it was right where it needed to be. So now we just need to figure out how we're going to pull this damn thing out of this pan.
Do you want to do the Chittister method?
How's that?
You put
I'm just going to run a wooden spoon through it.
Yep, a wooden spoon through each end and lift it.
What do you do with that spoon?
And there's another big one in the drawer.
And I'm sorry that this particular thing that we're doing today is a little bit less than, clean. But that's part of smoking is if you want to really smoke, get into it and everything, you got to get this end over here. If you really want to get into it, you're going to get dirty.
That is a pretty bird, baby.
I should have dumped some of that stuff out of it, but now, timer just came up.
Oh. Well, there you go. It's officially done.
It's officially done. And I bet if we stuck a thermopen in it right now, I checked the thigh and the drumstick, and they're both sitting about 175. And you can see where I stuck a hole in it right there with the thermopen. So right next to the timer right there, just about halfway in or whatever, it was 168 when I pulled it off the pit. So we need to get a tent on this thing. We'll get some. Ooh, it smells good. Holy cow, it smells good. We'll get some foil on this. Yeah, see those They look like they're overdone, but you can see it's still pliable, that skin right
Right.
there.
And once you tint it, that'll all
Once you tint
soften
it,
back
it'll
up.
soften up a little bit, and we'll just hang on to it. Kids are supposed to be here in about an hour and a half, and hopefully it'll hold on until then. Just throw it in the oven on warm. But so anyway, that's kind of a full circle thing on my way that I do turkey prep. And granted, it's a little dirty. You'll get lucky doing this, but that's all right. If you can't play with your food, there's no reason to do it. And I say this was kind of a two-part thing. I'll upload these as two different things. So if you didn't see the first one about prepping the turkey and putting it in the brine, make sure you look for that. I'll try to put a link in this video for that also. But anyway, once again, thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Fire, Flower, and Fur. I'm sorry that I look like I've just been working on asphalting a road, and I smell like a campfire too, but that's all right. Anyway, thanks again. We'll catch you on next time, and happy smoking to all.